probably be a good time to start.
Yes, Nadine, the card readers.
Pardon?
The Metro Rail card readers.
Great.
Confuses the drivers like crazy.
I know, I've done it myself.
Anybody need a mask?
I'm wearing one already.
I need one. This.
Yes. Yes, sir. Good to go on the cameras and stuff?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, well, why don't we get started? It's 10 o'clock. I'm Doug Funky. I'm the president of Citizens Regional Transit. It's the organization that Betsy was a member of the board of and an active member. I'm going to start. I've got a statement that I want to read about my memories of Betsy and experience working with her. Then our other board member, Carol Skopinski, will get up and talk. And then Betsy's two daughters will have a few words to say. So why don't we get started? Again, thanks for everyone for coming and for zooming in to this meeting. Betsy was a special person. She was a good friend, an inspiration for many of us. She certainly was that for me. I also want to give special thanks to the MFTA for providing the bench and installing Betsy's memorial plaque, which you can see up behind me. And I want to thank them on behalf of Citizens Regional Transit and from all of us. This is the perfect place for Betsy's memorial plaque. This was Betsy's station. I guess she probably spent more time here than she did at home. On her way to all the various meetings that she attended with all of us. Betsy's dedication to community service was visible early, evidenced by 2 stints as a Peace Corps volunteer in Poland. This was immediately after the collapse of the Soviet Union, which was a difficult time for Poland. Betsy learned to speak Polish fluently. She lived in Poland where she taught writing and English to future teachers. She married a Polish man while there and had 2 daughters, Julia and Maria. When the marriage ended in separation, she brought her daughters back here to America and raised them as a single mom. We started looking at Citizens Regional Transit. It isn't easy being a single parent, but Betsy made it work while providing an example of living deliberately and helping build a better community. Betsy's priority was always what was best for the larger good, especially for her 2 daughters, Julia and Maria. This was her first priority in life. She helped them through school and college. For example, I remember her helping them write countless applications for scholarships and just providing loving support through all of the tribulations of going to school and getting into school. Her motivation for promoting better public transit was based on her concern for the environment and a desire to achieve transportation equity for everyone. She recognized that car-centered transportation was ruining our environment, turning our cities into parking lots, and leaving the less affluent, poor, sometimes unworkable transportation options. Rather than contribute to the car-centered problem, she sold her car and relied on MTA buses and trains for all her day-to-day transportation needs. She would take a ride or borrow a car only when transit was unable to meet her needs, like taking her daughters to college out of town or attending meetings of MTA buses didn't go. She walked the walk and set an example for all of us. When Betsy learned she had cancer, she had hoped to live long enough to see her daughters through college. It was going to be close based on the diagnosis and the projections. Betsy almost knew. Julia finished her nursing degree, and Maria's graduation was just 1 month away when Betsy passed. While Betsy was not able to attend Maria's graduation as she planned, it was just weeks away, and she knew Maria was graduating. She was going to graduate. I know that gave her satisfaction and peace. As many of you know, Betsy had some beautiful flowers climbing up the front porches at her house each year. I'm talking with Maria, I guess they were growing again this year in her absence. They're beautiful. When I asked her what they were, she told me they were morning glories, and she would give us some seeds at the end of the year that we could plant the following year, and she did. We now have beautiful morning glories in our backyard each year. We harvest the seeds each fall, as Betsy taught us, and plant them in the spring. Whenever I look at them, I am reminded of Betsy. Let me know if anybody would like some morning glory seeds at the end of this year. They initially came from Betsy. Betsy was central to our success as Citizens for Regional Transit, or CRT. She joined our board in 2013 and was a major contributor from the day she joined. We all built on her energy, enthusiasm, insights, skills, ideas, and hard work on a day-to-day basis, and we rely on her persuasive writing skills. CRT's success depends on our ability to communicate clearly, succinctly, and convincingly. Betsy led us in writing white papers, letters to editors, and op-ed ads published in local newspapers, and arguing for better public transit, and especially for expanding Buffalo's light rail. She argued arguments from every angle, including economic, environmental, urban planning, and social justice. Her passion for transit and outgoing conversational nature was crucial for building rapport with important community leaders and communicating with public America. Her contribution helped us build a strong foundation that will serve us moving forward. It was Betsy's idea, for example, to have a petition for area leaders to sign. The petition that she called Transit Revolution asked our leaders to take action to provide a comprehensive and sustainable public transit service, specifically calling for extending Metro Rail along the highest rail corridors with intermodal connectivity with air and inner-city rail, and most importantly, establishing long-term sustainable transit funding. Betsy and I met with many leaders to get signatures, eventually getting signatures from many area mayors, town and city councils, even including Erie County Executive. We have made progress on the goals of this petition in recent years, obtaining increases in the amount of MTA state transit operating assistance, but more is needed, so we will continue to work on these goals. Betsy suggested and led an effort to develop an East Side Airport extension fact sheet that assembled a proposed map together with design details and laid out advantages of this most important light rail transit extension. We have some copies of this fact sheet here if anybody's interested, and they're also available on the website. Betsy was also instrumental in developing and fine-tuning a dynamite CRT brochure. She helped lead a brochure committee that worked over many months to develop our latest brochure. And I have copies here. I remember spending many hours with the brochure committee in Betsy's department, reworking countless drafts, ultimately arriving at the final masterpiece. We integrated our message with artwork and maps developed by CRT Vice President Seth Trace. Betsy's writing skills and passion to the task is evident in the final product. As I said, I have some copies here for those who are interested, and it was a great process. Betsy participated in CRT as best she could right until the end. She was unable to attend meetings in person during the final weeks, but attended via Zoom without video because she should have laid down to conserve her strength. She still participated in the meetings. It was only during the last few days that she had to stop. I emailed her on April 26th asking if she had received a notice of the upcoming monthly Buffalo-based board meeting that Betsy and I regularly attended together. I received her response on April 27th. It simply said, "Too much for me to keep track of it, so sorry." This was the last email I received from Betsy. She died 2 days later, on the 29th. We all miss Betsy very, very much. She can never be replaced, and we will continue in her memory as best we can. I'm going to finish my little talk with the words that's on the plaque that you can see over my shoulder. It says, "In memory of Elizabeth Betsy Giles, 1964 to 2022, Peace Corps volunteer, a passionate advocate for public transit, social justice, and the East Side, board member, citizens for regional transit, served on the NFTA's Citizens Advisory Committee." I invite anybody when you come to this station to take a break, sit on Betsy's bench, look at her plaque, and remember her many contributions, her friendship, and her service. Say a prayer of thanks. Thank you, and Carl, you want to say a few words?
Thank you.
Carl is
thanks, Doug, and thanks for everybody for attending. It's good to see some old friends as well. Not old friends, long-term friends. Start saying old, I'm already in that category. So, you know, I don't have a lot to say, but there are a couple things that really kind of touched my heart with Betsy. I call her Betsy. She was a powerhouse. I mean, everybody that knew her was just, she was a dynamo. I mean, I'm on 3 boards, and I didn't have half the energy that she had. I mean, it was just amazing the amount of time, effort, and especially passion she had for everything that she undertook. She made an excellent traveling companion. It was mainly on voicemail while being in the car. I live up in Clarence, and when I have to come into the city for a board meeting or whatever I always do, we do some sort of catch up. And I get on the car-activated voice phone, and we would have these conversations, and within, you know, it would seem like just seconds, I was already at my destination. We did a lot of planning. Betsy was my partner in crime in a lot of ways. One of the things that she's done, that she did, was she really wanted the Buffalo Central Terminal to be recognized. Wanted a little bit more love given to that building, so people would start recognizing it. And this is before even we got into the discussion of where the new train station was going to go. And one of the things that she did, she has a friend that lived in the UK, and he was working on something with the World Monument Fund. And that was a way to kind of dedicate a particular building and put it on what's called a watch list. It would be a handful of buildings that we pick every 2 years, two or 3 years, to be able to just get some community world focus on these buildings as they were truly monuments. And Betsy really worked that really hard behind the scenes. And it was to the point, I'm on the board of the Central Terminal as well. And I brought that up, and it was, you know, the idea was kind of battered around, but like everything else, it's just one item on an agenda, and you move on to other things. Well, Betsy took it upon herself to really talk to some folks in the preservation group here in Buffalo, and somehow that put a bug in the ear of someone else on the board at the terminal. And the next thing you know, an application was put in, and the Buffalo Central Terminal was put on the watch list along with there were only 3 other locations in the United States this year, that particular year. The other one that I recall was the Alabama, a set of buildings for the Alabama Civil Rights Movement. So the Buffalo Central Terminal was put in the same category as that building. And I really believe that that effort, and a lot of it was behind the scenes of Betsy's work, was the catalyst for some of the things that are kind of now happening in that building. You know, she was just, she could engage folks like that nobody I've ever met before. We'd be going to conferences or different public meetings, and she'd see a politician, and she'd say, you know, you could go over there and talk to them. So I'm like, oh, here we go, you know, like, here we go. I'm looking at my watch. Okay, I wanted to get home by 8. It ain't gonna happen. And you know, and you know how these things go when you approach people. You know, they give you the polite yes, they do the head nod. But you know, after about 5 or 7 minutes, I look over and they're actually engaging in this conversation. Right? They're connecting. They're making these connections. I do have a picture of her with Howard Zemsky, who at the time was the chairman of the NFTA. And I thought it was, oh boy, she's going to bend Howard's ear about the light rail line. And again, you know, you had that polite look. And then, next thing you know, they're engaging, there's a lot of hand motions on both parts. There's this easy fast, you know, I was just, again, she could make these connections. The other thing that was remarkable with her that I remember is that her eloquence in her writing. To this day, I still have that's in my head. Every time I write something, I write an email she says, Carol, you know, I think very politely, I think it'd be better if you kind of looked at it this way, or you wrote this, or you substituted this word. So she still lives in me, to this day, in my heart. She always will. She's just been great. The number of correspondence. I had to look at an old email from her the other day, not related to this, but something completely different. And she used to write so many emails that when I went back and Google tells you how many emails that you got from this person, right? After I paged down, it got to 600. And it said on the bottom, it said 600, it just gave up, it said of many. It never gave me the end point, it said of many. So that was just really, really great. The other thing, and again, another Howard Zemsky story, just really quick. When Doug talked about the light rail line going to, our hope of getting the light rail line from downtown Buffalo to the airport. So Betsy said, Carol, let's do a tour. She wasn't familiar with some of the locations. So we got in a car and we started from downtown, and we worked our way all the way through until we got to about Barkenville. And then it started drizzling out. And just as we got to a red light, I think it was on Seneca and Smith Street, we look up right in front of us, and here comes Howard Zemsky walking across the street. And he's no longer the NFD chairman or the New York State Economic Development chair. And it's slightly drizzling out, and Betsy said, "Oh, there's Howard." So she starts rolling down the window, and I'm like, "Betsy, it's kind of raining." I'm like, he goes, "No, we'll just take a second." So we pull over, and she goes, Howard, and Howard, wait, waits and comes over to the car. And again, we have this conversation. But she opened the door we had an intern last summer, not this past summer, but last summer, from Cornell, Cornell University, that Betsy and I were kind of supervising for a paper that she was writing for us. And we, Howard was gracious enough to say, yes, have her call me, I'll come down, I'll sit down with an interview, have to do an interview with her, and it worked out really great. She was passionate about the east side of Buffalo. She was proud of her Polish heritage. She was proud of the churches. She used to call me up, "Hey, Carl, let's go. There's an open house, so let's go to this church and take a look at the architecture." I'm like, okay. So we did a couple of those. She wanted the Broadway market to revitalize, which it is. But the thing that she was most passionate about was Julia and Mary. I can remember first meeting them, and I know how kids are when they're really young, and I know how parents are when they're trying to introduce their kids to culture and things happen. And I think it was at the City of Night that was moved to the first ward from Silo City. And I think I ran into Maria and Julia for the first time, and you could tell it was someplace that Mom dragged them to. And I know how this is because my sons were scouts, and I dragged them to a bunch of scouting events. So I just knew the look on their face, but I knew there's two things that were going to happen. One is that was imparting culture and options and opportunities in a greater world to her daughters. But I also knew somewhere down the line, they're going to absorb that and be greater people than they could have been without her guidance. I know she was very proud of Julia. She would say, Julia's working at UCMC, the emergency room. She's taking care of these. There's shooting in the east side. She's taking care of that. And Maria going over to Russia, which I think she had more concern about getting her there and all the paperwork that needed to happen at the very end than actually her being in Russia, because Maria was in Russia when the Ukrainian invasion happened. And I was like a train wreck. I was calling her, "How's it going? And you hear anything? And she was pretty cool about it. She says, "No, I'm not going to panic or get worried until the school sends some emails saying we got to get, But her very last, it was her birthday, or just shortly after her birthday, she wrote, "Maria's back home. Best birthday present ever." And it was just, that was her. I miss seeing her. I miss the day-to-day conversations, but I still have my voicemails that I saved from her. And I listen to her voice, call me back, hey, can we talk about this type of thing. But she lives in my heart. She's in my head all the time when I write something or try to edit something. I think I'm a better writer for it, even though I still make typos that Betsy would have caught, but just that would be so. Anyway, thank you for all being here. And if Julia and Mario want to speak.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh God, right in the heartstrings, right before we have to talk. It's rough. Hello everyone, my name is Julia, this is Maria. We're Elizabeth's daughters. And first I'd just like to start off by saying thank you for coming today. And a special thank you to NFTA and CRT for putting all of this together. In no part was this it was not organized by us at all. So really, you do not deserve any credit for all of this, and especially this wonderful memorial.
So yeah, thank you again everyone for being here. As Doug mentioned earlier, this location is very significant to us because we grew up a couple blocks away and it was our family subway stop. So the three of us have been through those doors over there hundreds of times. And I feel like with families that have cars and when you grow up with a car in your family as your main way of getting around, a lot of the time I think that childhood car is more than just a vehicle. Like, kind of takes on this significance and this personal meaning, and there's a lot of memories stored there. And we grew up without a car because our mom chose not to have one as a public transit advocate. And I think that we have a lot of those similar feelings about this station and about Buffalo's subway system in general, because we really do have so many memories here. I remember playing on those escalators as a little girl with my mom. I remember us singing Christmas carols together because they sometimes play them in the stations around the holidays while it snowed outside and we waited for our train. And then when we got older, I remember her teaching us how to ride the train alone for the first time as we got ready to transition into high school and commute to school alone on the train every day. And I think as we got older, we also had a lot of deep conversations on the train because it was a unique moment in our busy lives when we weren't distracted by anything and could just talk. And then randomly, I also remember writing a play together with my mom, and the plot was around a subway trip downtown on a cold winter's night. So that's all just to say that this is a very significant location for us, and in many ways a cornerstone of our childhood. And we can't think of a better place to commemorate our home.
Absolutely. And I think especially for me, what this bench truly honors and this plaque truly honors, it's more than just like our memories specifically. I think it really speaks to my mom's passion that she had for public transit. And really, if you knew Betsy well, you knew she was a public transit advocate. She could strike up conversation with anyone about anything public transit related. I remember tugging at her sleeve in the grocery store, like, "Mom, come on, let's go." And she would be talking like half hour or more to someone about these things. I remember my sister's piano teacher stayed. The lesson was only an hour long, but then the teacher stayed for an extra 2 hours just talking to my mom. Oh, yeah, 2 whole hours afterwards. I also, one thing that really, when I think about my mom specifically with CRT and all the work that she did, I recall her tabling at the Elmwood Festival of the Arts, and I was taking some pictures of her and just like watching what she was doing. And I think that was really my first time really like watching her in action, like watching her work. And I just remember marveling at how invested she was, her enthusiasm, her spirit. everything that she brought, like when she was talking to people, as Carl said, very engaging. And I really remember like striving to be like her once I had found my passion. I think she really was also just an outstanding advocate just because she really showed people that living car-free was possible, even with kids and all the craziness that comes with that. It was more than something that she just cared about, it was something that she lived and breathed every day.
So, one more thing I wanted to touch on really quickly was that we're both very grateful for the values that my mom's advocacy instilled in us growing up. You know, she always taught us the importance of living sustainably, and moreover about the harm that cars as a mass form of transit have not just our natural environment, but also society in the way that they make basic transportation inaccessible to large groups of people. And certainly by the time I got to college and was taking courses on complex issues of geographic inequality and the politics of mobility, I was very grateful to have already been exposed to some of these perspectives because of her work. And maybe at a more personal level, I think growing up without a car and getting around using public transit helped us develop a certain mindfulness of our environment as we move through it, and certainly helped teach us how to navigate through the world independently, which we're also grateful for. So that being said, I encourage all of you to incorporate public transit more into your lives for the sake of my mom's legacy and also for the sake of our planet and future, as she would want.
Remember her. It just means so much to us, like more than we can possibly say. So just thank you.
I want to finish again by reiterating our thanks for everyone who came, and certainly Betsy's message got through to her daughters. And she was successful. She would have loved to have heard you say the things you said in transit, so the message got through, and we're going to keep on trying to get it through to everybody else in the society. It's a tough message to sell, and we keep on working on it. I'll mention again that our brochure is here. One of the things I was going to say, and I forgot, is that also in the brochure it tells you how you can join and how you can support Citizens Regional Transit. Betsy wanted me to say that, so pick up the brochure and take it home and give it to your friends and neighbors and whoever might be interested. Again, thank everyone for coming and being supporting us and being a friend of Betsy's. And I'm going to end this here, but we'll be here for a few minutes if anybody wants to talk informally. So thank you again.
Thank you.